Okay, this is going to be a weekly recap from the 12th day of December to the 16th, and I barely, even though I ended up making a profit, it was only because I had one setup that really worked out. There was a great opportunity to be super profitable this week, especially with DPLS right here. And I made a new lesson, which is to not trade subpenny stocks with $100 risk level, but to make a half of whatever my current dollar risk level is. So right now is going to be just a $50 risk level. Something about trading 40,000 shares on the subpenny stock, it just seems to never work out. And I get like a percent loss over 5%, which I don't like. So I'm going to be a little more conservative with the sketchy subpenny stocks. And yeah, let's look at the stats. 50% winning percentage rate. Most of my trades were according to my dollar risk level, and my average day, my average dollar gain is larger than my average dollar loss, and that was again with this one trade that really worked out right here. The rest of the stats are pretty close, other than the fact that I did seem to trade more um, position sizes that are larger on my winning setups, which is good. Let's go ahead and look at the trades one by one, starting with LWLG, which is on the 12th. All right, the 12th is going to be right here. Not a very significant day other than the fact that it's trading near its lows and it's somewhat trying to hold a support level around this $6 to $7 level. Let's look at the 12th. This is going to be right here. I did not mean to open the web browser. I was in at 954 at 6, let's just say 689. And this was a morning panic bounce play trend line break. So 954, 689. 954 was right here at 689. I think I was in right at the beginning of 955. Yeah. And I was in it because this was a morning panic bounce play. I saw a trend line break as well, so I'm going to guess the line was from here to here. And then if you extend that to the right, you can see that it not just had like a drop, but it was following this trend line. It tried to break above it right here. And then when it did one more drop, but no longer following the trend line, that's when I went long at this point at 689. And I did get out the next minute. It looks like it could have been much more profitable here at 955 at 6, let's just say 691. So 955 was right here when I got out at 691. So right around here at the very bottom of this candle. And let's see why I got out. Yeah, it just seems like I really don't see anything as to why I didn't, do well with this one. Sold early thinking trendline was broken. Oh, I remember now. Yeah, so I was in the setup. I was, in at a good price for what it was and everything. And the problem was is that I didn't have this trend line that you can see right here. And I got out of it right here at this point at the very bottom of this candle at the wick because I thought before I drew this trend line that it broke it, and it didn't break it. It was actually right at the line, which is too bad. And then it did continue the uptrend and got as high as the 720. So this was actually a very profitable setup. I probably would have considered selling a large amount of my position, maybe everything at VWAP at $7, or maybe just the majority and then a tiny amount when it officially breaks the trend line. Maybe here actually, or here. Let's just see what a sell at $7 would have been. This setup did work out. Just didn't trade it that well. Wouldn't have been too bad in terms of profitability. And I do have another lesson here, which is to consider LWLG, even though it is a listed stock now as a OTC, because it used to be one and it still kind of trades like one. And I mean, best case scenario, if I were to have followed it, right, would have been, you know, a lot more profitable. So yeah, that's the situation with that. Could have done that one a lot better. Just thought that it broke under the trend line and it didn't. Could have been worse. It could have been something where I just got out because I was scared. No, it just looked like it broke an uptrending trend line and it didn't. So definitely there was room for more profitability there. Let's look at CGRA for the 12th. Don't really like the stock too much. Right here is a 12, nothing too crazy other than that, maybe it could try to uptrend over a longer period of time after this big sell-off day, but we didn't really get much of that here. It was just sold off. I was in at 10:02.63, and this was a morning panic bounce play, lower low. So 10:02 was right here, and I was in at 63, so I was in it right here. Why? Morning panic bounce play, lower low. So in theory, to me, this was a morning panic. It dropped from 78 as low as 63, had a bounce, and now it drops again, and it's a lower low, and there was some volume here, and I thought maybe it could try to bounce and head towards VWAP. I got out at 10:08 at 6233, so 10:08 was right here at 6233, so I got out roughly around here at 10:08, and let's take a look at my notes as to why. It just seems like one of those type of setups where I didn't really like the way it was trading, and this one in particular didn't break the day low, which was the 61 level, but I got out because the price action was ugly. It did eventually get to VWAP, but yeah, that's tough. Sometimes it's better to make a judgment call and say, it looks like it's gonna really break the day low and head that direction once it gets there, and then you sell and then it does do it, and then there's times like here where it just looks really ugly but it never breaks the day low and it gets to the goal, which is VWAP, although not really nice, just kind of sporadic, not much volume at all. But let's just see what a sell at VWAP would have been, which was 677. Would have been pretty profitable for what that was, and that was also undersized. It seems like I needed to have traded much more shares, so yes, that would have been a super profitable trade, but this one didn't really have the volume for something like that. But I don't know, maybe it had the volume for it, but definitely could have used more volume, more price action. But okay, that's another setup that had some potential. Maybe I should just be more solid on sticking to the day low as a risk level. Let's look at ADHC on the 13th. 13th is going to be right here. Nice third green day, still uptrending. Pretty massive and all. Let's highlight the 13th. I was in at 932. Okay, this one was painful. I was in at 932 at Subpenny level 45. 932 was right here. I was in at 45 right here. Why? This was previous day high breakout. So the idea was that the previous day high was 44, as you can tell right here. 44 is the high, and I'm in the setup because it looks like it's going to not just hold where it opened, stay above VWAP, break the day high, which is currently 45. I'm in it at 44, I think, right? Or was it 45? No, it was actually 45 at 932. Yeah, at the very top, 45. And I think it's going to break it, and it's going to do a morning spike and uptrend, which is exactly what it did, as you can tell right there. I got out the next minute. I need to stop selling setups the next minute, unless it just absolutely falls off a cliff and breaks the day low. I hate seeing setups that I'm only in for a minute. I was out at 933 at 421. This one got me really good. Right here I got out. Why? Because it broke under VWAP, which is my risk level. But after this, I made a new rule, with morning spike setups where my risk level is VWAP, because I think it's too scary for me to consider risking the day low, because it could easily break the day low and be a morning panic, and that could be a lot of slippage. My new rule is that if it actually closes under VWAP, I'll cut the trade. But if it's just going to do a stupid wick like this, I'm going to be frustrated, but I'm going to still stick to the plan and hold on to the position. And that would have allowed me to have been pretty profitable here. I could also draw, in theory, a trend line from, maybe let's do it from this corner to be a little more aggressive. And then that would have been a sell, maybe right here, worst case scenario at 48. Let's see a sell at 48, what that would have been. Yeah, not the best sell, but that would have been profitable. Basically the opposite of what I lost. And yeah, this one's it just worked, but it just had that stupid, thing right there that threw me off. But next time I won't fall for that. And I think I did have a trade where it got below VWAP, but I didn't sell and it did work out. I'm not sure what stock that was. And yeah, it's still a sub penny stock. I'm gonna trade less. It just seems like I'm not doing as well with sub penny stocks, even if I'm on the right track. I just don't seem to make money doing it. So I'm gonna consider staying away from sub pennies for all of those reasons. Let's look at DPLS on the 15th. 15th is going to be right here. First green day after a very scary, ugly, a downtrend over a longer period of time. Nice volume, which makes it a little different from most OTCs that have like a little baby run up after having a big one a long time ago. Let's look at 931 at 12, and this was a morning spike, first green day. Very aggressive setup. I don't really tend to trade all that much, just being there right there at the morning, very first day. But this one was having a gap up, as you can see right here. And let's zoom in some more. Actually, I was in at 931 at 12. I was in it right here with 20,000 shares, I believe, and I needed to have had more shares. I needed to have traded 40,000 shares. I got out the next minute, 932 at 122 was my average. Right here at 122, so right here. This one threw me off because this was another setup in the morning. And as you can tell, there were these multiple movements under VWAP, which is my risk level morning spike setup. And this was just another reminder of that. I got chickened out because of the multiple times that would get under VWAP, but after my sell, I never did do that again. Never had wicks, at least until it got to 15, which was pretty profitable. And this one could have really made my week, but it did make my week in that I learned a really good lesson. And that is to, again, not cut a setup unless it closes under VWAP. I was in it just to go over it again at 931. So even though this one did close under VWAP right here, it was the minute that I bought. It was the minute that I got in the setup. So it was much different than just, a candle that happens after my entry. And then you can also make like a trend line, right? Would have cut it right here at 144 perhaps. Let's see what a sell there would have been. And I also had the wrong amount of shares. I needed to trade 40,000 shares. So you can see how there was a lot of potential profitability, especially considering the fact that it got as high as 2 cents, which was massive. I mean, that is best case scenario. And that would have been super big, just really huge, over a 50% gain. So yeah, that's the lesson really. I think, yeah, you see, let's just say instead of saying previous day high, let's just change that to morning spike. I guess I'll get rid of the period. That's kind of weird. And we'll put this one in the middle. That's it. Yeah, a lot of potential. Hopefully in the future I can be able to be much more profitable with a setup like that. Let's look at the setup that did work out nicely. HNRC morning panic bounce play on the 15th. Something I have a lot more experience with. Trading morning panic bounce plays. And the 15th is going to be right here. Let me get rid of the drawing tool. 15th is here. Right there. Maybe not that much. I was in at 944 at 4064. So 944 was right here. I got in it right here at 464. So right around here is when I got in. And I didn't get to the very bottom right here at 464, but I still got in the setup because it looks like a morning panic bounce play. It drops from 70 as low as 38 level, which is huge in terms of percent difference. And yeah, it looked like it was trying to turn around, trading off of this level right there. And it was also something that would follow a trend line, I think. We just draw one. I'm not sure exactly if I had a trend line or not. Maybe something like this. It looks like it would have been a bit later. Unless maybe the trend line I had was different on the day I traded. Let me just take a look to see if I had a trend line on the bottom. Yeah, I did. All right, yeah, look, this was a trade right here when I entered, and I did have a trend line, but not really off of the top, which showed the same thing I just made, that it was after my entry that it broke past it, but I had this one towards the bottom end of the candles, and this was really just taking a trade because it looks like it's trying to turn around right then and there. Maybe I saw something on the level too, but that was a setup. I got out at 950. Notice how this one I didn't hold for a minute. I actually got to make some money off of it. I was out at let's just say 4444 at 950 just because it's pretty close to it. Yeah, it looks like I almost sniped my sell, but it was actually kind of scary because the volume was starting to dry up, and once it was starting to make a move towards VWAP, I did put some sells, and I was able to get a majority. I think 500 shares sold at 45, and then I had the rest at like 43 right here, but it all went into the same order, which closed in theory at 950. I think maybe the last piece was like right in between 949 to 950, but that was a sell right there. Super nice setup, worked out, had the right amount of shares. I hope I can do stuff like that more often in the future. And now let's look at DPLS one more time on the 15th. 15th is going to be here. Still the same big green day. So I did take another setup with DPLS after the morning spike happened and everything. I wasn't really upset with it because it's just something I don't have that much experience with compared to morning panic bounce setups. But that one, was a good reminder to have my risk level at VWAP and cutting the trade if it closes under VWAP. Let's look at 1013. I was in at 17, and this was a bull flag setup. So let's zoom in some more. 1013 was right here. This green candle in at 17. Why did I get in? Did I just say bull flag? Yeah, bull flag at VWAP. So I was in it right here because I thought this was a bull flag. Nice morning spike, selling off and everything, and I thought it was going to maybe try to do a bull flag around this VWAP level, and then with the VWAP momentum and everything, it could turn around. It didn't do it. It failed. I got out 1014 at 16.4, so 1014 was the next candle at 16.4, which is fine to sell the next minute if you're cutting the trade because it failed. And the reason why I got out of the setup was that a 3 million share seller showed up at the ask, and that's like really bad. Bad, 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 bad. It's like a huge red flag. And I instantly cut the trade. There was some slippers. I lost $6, and I didn't want to try it anymore. But in theory, when I was looking at DPLS, you can see how I had a trend line right here. And I thought I was trying to, be smart, trading it around here, thinking it could be like a bull flag, holds VWAP, breaks the trend line and uptrends and everything. And I guess these little two candles, which actually did happen, show like some crazy selling at the 19, so I'm almost at 2 pennies. And it did eventually break the trend line right here. And this thing was impressive because it broke past it. And then it did get to VWAP and then above VWAP. So just kind of didn't want to feel like maybe I'm just being too smart with my trading, and because I had that big gain, now I'm going to feel like I'm so awesome, and then I trade a bunch of setups that don't work and I lose it all. Didn't want to go through that. Even though I was right on the trend line break, I was trying to be a little smart, thinking that it was going to turn around VWAP, but I think it was still a good attempt because it could have worked out. And that's pretty much it. It seems like I left a lot of money on the table, which is good because it means there is still a lot of things I can get better at. And with the lessons I learned, especially going over these setups, I think I can be more prepared, especially with morning spike setups. That's it for this weekly recap.